So, back in 2020, the National Museum in New Delhi was going to recreate a menu about the Harappan civilization from nearly 4,500 years ago. Now, obviously, the Harappans didn't have the same food as we did, which meant they ate beef, mutton, deer, quail, and I should really stop before my mouth starts watering. But unfortunately, in 2020, the idea that people almost 5,000 years ago didn't eat the same things as us became very controversial, and the National Museum had to remove meat from the menu. But that controversy is very much how we think about food in India today. Restrictions on the sale or consumption of meat are becoming commonplace. There are lots of studies showing that meat eating is fairly universal across a subcontinent, but the notion that India should be or originally was a vegetarian land is well established. Vegetarianism is associated with ideas of purity and often tied to the status of a community. Dietary restrictions and fasting are associated with ritual significance. But where did these notions come from and why? Like with so many things in modern India, the answer lies in our medieval past. I'm Anirudh Kanisetti, historian and author of Lords of the Deccan. Welcome to Thinking Medieval, where every week we tell you something new about our complex, innovative past. Always feel free to check out our research and citations and join us in figuring out how to think about our messy, bloody, dazzling history. She eats grass only from land duly appointed for grazing. All the people who eat in this wide land, she nourishes with her sweet, excellent milk. She has a generous heart. Why do you hold such hatred for her? Tell me what you are thinking. Priests learned in the ancient Veda. Thus proclaims Apputtiran, one of the protagonists of the Manimekalai, the great Tamil Buddhist epic dated to the 6th century CE. His audience are a group of Vedic priests who are about to sacrifice a cow because, according to the Manimekalai, their goal is meat. This episode, you can look it up, it's in Canto 13 of the Manimekalai, is surprising because we stereotypically think of Hindu priests avoiding meat at all costs. But it appears that in early medieval Tamil Nadu, it was Buddhists who were most insistent on avoiding it. As we read the Manimekalai in conjunction with other evidence, though, our picture kind of changes. In a paper called Food Fights, Buddhist, Hindu and Jain Dietary Polemics in South India, historian Katherine Ulrich shows that the Manimekalai was being a little sneaky in presenting the Buddhists as being so holy and non-violent. In the Matta-vilāsa Prahasana, or the Farce of the Drunkard's Games, what a wonderful title, a play which was written by the 7th century Pallava king Mahendravikramavarman I, Buddhists are roasted for being greedy for meat and fish. The protagonist of the play is a Shaivite ascetic who uses a skull to beg for meat and alcohol. He is convinced that only a Buddhist or a dog could have stolen it because it had meat in it. Yum yum. Jains were also a significant religious force in medieval Tamil Nadu, and we would certainly expect that, like modern Jains, they were strictly vegetarian. That is, until we read the poems of the 8th century Shaiva saint Sambandar, nearly 10% of whose work is dedicated to vitriolic criticism of Buddhists and Jains. Jains, according to Sambandar, secretly desire fish cooked with meat, although they piously claim to subsist mostly on gruel and nuts. So, evidently, accusing your rivals of eating meat had some significance to medieval religious leaders. But, of course, to see medieval India as a world only of religious screed is obviously simplistic. It's not today, after all. So, what do other sources tell us about food? If you look at a somewhat later text, the Manoharlal of the Chalukya king Someshwara III, it gives us a completely unexpected picture. Rather than avoiding or dismissing meat, delicious barbecues, curries and kebabs are the most crucial aspects of what the Manoharlal calls bhoga, a concept denoting the king's enjoyment of the luxuries of his court. Among the over 100 meat dishes that the Manoharlal describes are blood sausages, goat heads, barbecued river rats, and grilled stomach membrane. Game birds, venison, and pork are richly spiced with hing, ginger, turmeric, pepper, mustard, coriander, and cumin. Meat was cooked on skewers, curried, grilled, fried in ghee. Recipes similar to kebabs are presented centuries before the advent of any Indian Muslim ruled polities. Now, the Manoharlal Matta-vilāsa actually prescribes that meat was to be eaten through at least 3 of the 5-course meals it prescribes for kings. I think that the evidence suggests that in medieval India, meat was being eaten by most people, whether openly or secretively, irrespective of their religion. So why were religious leaders all criticizing others for doing so? According to Katherine and Ulrich, we need to read their polemics within their socio-economic context. The medieval period was a turbulent time. With the emergence of new military and social elites and state structures, much more money was suddenly available as donations to religious sects. Now, to get that money for themselves, these sects all needed to establish their distinctiveness and their ritual efficacy. And one of the best ways to do that was to use dietary restrictions and to claim that they were purer and more superior than other groups. Of course, no matter what the Babas and Gurus said, in practice medieval people continued to follow their taste buds. So how much has really changed in terms of how religious sects present themselves in India? Or maybe what we should be asking is why our response to religious claims is so different from those of our medieval ancestors, and why fundamentalist strategies over 1,000 years old still seem to cast their shadow over the modern nation state. If you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear them. Follow us everywhere on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Anirudh and at Connected Histories, and on Twitter at Kanisetti. We'll see you next week.